Thank you again, Stacy, for kind of walking through. And again, when we're talking about building a community and building this convergence within the IT, the security, and the business side, obviously Stacy's kind of walked through that connection aspect, and she has a process that has to do with the heart and the science aspect of how you approach this. Because again, there's the head aspect and everything logical. A lot of us are very logical in that regard, but there is a heart component. We got to remember, we're working with people. It's not at all just technology, as some of us would love it to be. And I'm actually going to take my sunglasses off. And so one of the things we wanted to walk through is kind of the practical aspect, though. We wanted to walk through how Tim approaches some of these components, and then how Stacy has done it from a consulting aspect outside of organizations. A lot of businesses listen to her in regards to how these approaches are implemented and deployed, and we just want to kind of walk through that. And so I'd love, Tim, if you can walk through a little bit of how do you look at connection within an organization?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting question. Like for me, my primary connection is to be the single point of contact between technology and our contact center organization.
Sure.
So like in those stories where like Kristen had a bad experience where IT wasn't solving that problem effectively, like I'm the person that they come and complain to and say, why aren't IT systems working for us, and help me solve this business problem. So for me, that's the really big connection, is a relational one, and also making sure that I'm connecting the strategies, knowing where IT is going, knowing where IT strategies are going, knowing where the industry is going, but also recognizing my local business partner strategy as they lead the contact center people organization and say, this is where we're trying to take the organization, and making sure that we're forward-looking in our solutions to support them in that. There's a trust component to that. We talked about connections and trust. There's a big trust piece to that, because IT delivery solutions don't always come at the timelines that your business partners aspire to. And so saying like, hey, trust me, it's on a roadmap. Trust me, it's prioritized. Trust me, I understand that it matters. Trust is a really big part of that connection.
And again, yeah, that trust aspect is almost like a glue, a necessity, so to speak, within an organization. And I'd love for you to hit on a little bit more in regards to, because you are the glue between the business and the IT side. You're gathering requirements, you're making sure that they're delivered upon. And one of the things that we talk about a bit is making sure that it's frictionless for the business, as well as the customer. Because when all of us have been to a Lowe's, walking through, getting wood, getting appliances, getting whatever, we don't need technology being the barrier between that. And other home improvement type organizations, where some of that failure has been in place, where I'm trying to buy a washer and their systems aren't working, so they're like, well, we can't order it right now, but we'll have to order it later. And that becomes, now you've got friction that is happening at the customer level. How do you guys deal with that, both internally and then externally? And you can talk about the insurance side, because there's different aspects as well. So
yeah, I'll share something that I think is common across all of those aspects, and I'm going to disagree with myself. I said trust people, and I'm going to say I don't trust anybody else to identify the experienced customer friction. One thing that I've been doing for the past many years is directly listening to recorded calls with customers. I try to invest about 4-6 hours a week listening to real customer calls and making sure that I'm intimately connected to experiencing friction, both on the employee side of like, look how hard it was to navigate that system, is also the customer side of like, wow, they were getting really frustrated there, and I understand why. And I've kind of built whole strategies historically around identifying patterns of customer friction and saying, let's just go try to tackle those. So yeah, I trust my business partners, but I don't want anybody else to summarize that. Like, I want to be emotionally connected to those experiences of friction.
And Stacy, in regards to that frictionless aspect, I know one of the things you're always gaining knowledge from different individuals because of your podcast and walking through, interviewing different individuals that are in all walks of life. And I know you have a perspective across different industries how that friction aspect applies. When you take that information that you're learning from these individuals, how are you applying that from a consulting? How are you bringing that back to the business?
Yeah. Well, back to the customer journey that I was mentioning. I mean, when you literally come together and you design the experience, or you go through the experience as a team, that's part of it. If you are walking in that customer's shoes, you're able to identify, where is this really hard? Where is this really easy? And so you're going through the experience, and then you're finding, even in a digital space online, I'll put a website in front of someone and say, okay, go find this information, which is important to be able to make a decision. And I'll give customers that website and that task about 5 minutes. Well, what happens? They leave the website because it was so difficult. So it's digital, but it's also offline, as in the case when I was saying before that you buy something online, you go to the retail store, you want to return something, and they said, sorry, you got to return it back online. That's friction for the customer who says, aren't you one company? Why do I have to go back? Why won't you take it? It's the same brand, right? So the friction is digital and non-digital.
Okay. And again, we all experience that. This is a component where I don't think anybody in this room hasn't had that issue or that problem before, where you seem to have a customer or a company you're trying to gain or get products and services from that are completely disjointed, almost as if they're two different companies.
Exactly, but the issue is silos.
Yep.
Right? It's the silos that people are like, and the reality of that omni-channel experience where the offline doesn't want to take the online purchase back because they have their goals. That was an e-commerce sale. That wasn't a retail sale.
Yeah.
So that silo is what's hurting the business instead of it being unified customer experience shared metrics.
So kind of hitting on the digital aspect, but internal. So one of the things that we always talk about is the things you take in will expose itself externally. So kind of like watching reality TV. If you take in too much reality TV, everything that comes out might be a little bit garbage or train wreck type conversations. You might start believing that this is the way the world is all the time. But that internal and taking in good information or good stuff in order to, because everything that, whether you work out, that working out helps make sure that your outside looks good. I can probably work out a little bit more if I'm to be honest. And how are you guys approaching, I'll kind of pick on Tim again on this one. How are you looking at or even approaching how to deal with the internal struggles and the internal components, both from a technology but also from a people process perspective?
Yeah, the data is so critical now. So I think back to earlier moments of my career where I could walk a really big floor and you could sense culture physically. You could see leader engagement. You could see performance boards that teams could physically huddle around. And many of the trends now are moving more towards permanent work from home for contact center type functions, as well as third-party staffing for contact center functions as industry trends. And so your ability to gain those insights that used to be able to walk down a floor and walk away with a strong impression of how's it going broadly, how's it going today, you now have to have data insights into all of those things. So the data is getting really critical, but then you would say, well, where does all of the conversational data come from? I gave a story of saying I like to spend a few hours a week listening to calls. That's not a great thing to do at scale. And I would never say I know all of the right answers because I've got some of my personal experiences of identifying customer friction. And so this is where we're seeing AI as a key enabler come into this space to be able to identify some of those critical trends, because we can transcribe everything and we can go say, show me the really interesting patterns, people patterns, type of call patterns, historical patterns and seasonality trends, and we can start to get feedback back that used to be easier to physically navigate it, but now we're probably getting better insights and better data, even with those boundaries and limitations, because the AI-enabled insights are real game changers in the space.
Yeah, and bringing on the AI component, and even just 2 years ago, a lot of this stuff you could not gain insights, or at least confident insights out of some of the data that was being churned and being effectively learned off of by the AI models. And now we're seeing this efficiency gains. I think we were talking about it earlier on about taking on some of those administrative tasks. AI now has the ability to provide business insights. And so, again, in that regard, it's just AI has become a game changer. And Stacy, I know you interview quite a bit of folks that are building and designing and developing some of these tools. What have you seen that's just game changer out there?
The game changer is how companies understand that they have so much feedback from customers, and it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Right? So we do have the structured data, the surveys. We have the unstructured data of social media and the rating and reviews. You have the chat conversations going on. You have people filling out web forms. What's happening is companies are starting to aggregate, centralize, and prioritize that feedback so that people can act on it. Before, it was very manual, and before, even in some companies, it's still fragmented, but they're using AI to help with the analysis, the pulling of the data, the centralization, and then new strategies, but in a pecking order, because you can't solve everything at the same time.
No, I agree. How are you guys governing this stuff? Like that's a whole different conversation, and we may not have time for that right now. But like, how do you look at that? Because there's voice data, so like actual voice calls. You have sentiment that goes with those calls, and you have the chatbot components that you have to tie together with the voice, because a lot of those communications are actually stitched together because they're one communication.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot.
Yeah, and just to give some scale to that, because I think if you've had a lot of experience in a small company background, you can kind of think of taking on that challenge through individual coaching conversations. When you start to think about larger footprints within contact centers into the thousands, and then you start to say, you know what, within that space, annual turnover averages are about 40%. So within like my current experience, 4,000 footprint, 40% turnover, we're onboarding 1,600 people a year just to stay flat. We're also not staying flat, so you've got growth in new spaces going on at the same time. So you absolutely cannot govern through individual relationships. It's great to have good manager-employee relationships. There's still lots of reasons that matters, but when you think about how are we managing this and ensuring that we're achieving strategic customer experience outcomes, you have to be able to do it at scale. And so the ways that we're seeing that to be most effective is making the associate's job as easy as possible. So we don't want to have really burdensome systems, really complicated business processes. We want to simplify those things as much as possible by accelerating their experiences at the time that phone calls connect. So if I already know who you are as a customer, if I already know why you're calling, if I can already get your systems ready for that interaction, if I can drive, to tie into security a bit, things like really effective authentication into an IVR experience or prior to connecting a chat, I get to remove all of that burden from my contact center representative and just let them try to have an effective problem-solving conversation with the customer. So that's our biggest way of doing it, is like, let's take the accountability on ourselves as the organization to build good processes, systems, and tools that feel effortless. I promise that's a vision statement, not a current statement. But that's our goal. And then that helps us to say, you know what, the governance is really our internal accountability by making the process as easy as possible. And then we leave managerial functions, absolutely, like, did you come to work on time and things like that.
Which also you could potentially leverage AI as well in regards to when they clock in, when they clock out, and so on and so forth, and leverage other tools, but I digress. Do you want to, I see that you want to add something to that.
Yeah, can you see me jumping out of my seat?
Yeah.
So here's a very actionable thing to do. AI simulation is a game changer when it comes to the contact centers, even sales teams too, where you get to practice before you actually talk to a real customer, before you actually, those agents that are in nesting stage, they get to rehearse and practice. And the AI simulation serves as an angry customer, a pleasant customer, in chat and in voice, and it's real. Like, it really feels like this is not an AI. But the magical moment is that the agent can practice without their boss hearing. So if it's set up right, and certain technologies do allow this, so they can practice, and then when they're ready, they can let the recording and the grading system go to their manager, who then decides that they're ready to be on their first call. And it absolutely, when I talk to these agents, they appreciate it because they have confidence. You're building their confidence. You're building their connection to the brand because they feel like, okay, I have safety, psychological safety to do my job. So I encourage you all to really look at how AI simulation can benefit. There's a couple different providers. Look at that, embrace it.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of the folks here have a good understanding of some of that simulation aspect, because even outside of the contact center where an agent can practice and be able to engage, there's also AI simulation tools that are attacking the organizations, because right now a lot of us are under threat, and when you're under threat, how do you gain those reps? You've got to gain those reps, and you can do them through tabletop exercises. You can do those types of things in the security space, but even more so, because of how advanced AI has gotten, there are certain things you can leverage where you have simulated attacks at scale, where you've got these, and you can dial up the intensity, and you can dial it down depending on what you're trying to do. So no, I agree with you. On the simulation side, it's become a little bit of a game changer, because simulation hasn't always worked in the past.
Right.
But that's because we didn't have some of the tools and the large language models that are in place today.
With any technology, what I'm finding, you can buy anything. You can't just throw it at the staff. Because the truth is, as humans, we do have fear. And I'm finding when I talk to different employees and teams, they are fearful because there's so much unknown. However, when you train them and have them part of the solution, that is gold. Then they're using it and continuously using it.
Yeah, I'd love to add on to that. So like one thing is we want our folks to feel trained and empowered up on their primary function, which is serving the customer well. We don't want it to be navigating complex systems. But then we also, from a security lens, we really don't want them to have to be threat identification. If they're humans with access log on to applications, they're a potential vector for social engineering. We don't need them to be experts on identifying social engineering threats. We want them to have some baseline understanding, but the things that we're really thinking about from a future lens perspective is saying, what if AI is live monitoring every single phone call, and what if it can recognize patterns of unusual dialogue that are often associated with malicious activity from somebody presenting themselves as a customer? And that's something we would love to be able to take. You talk about doing your job with confidence. We'd love to be able to take that fully off of people's plates. And we think that it's highly viable. And one of the things that we were chatting about previously was one of the first stories that you heard about with AI being really successful at identifying patterns associated with risks and outcomes was related to medical imaging. So they started to feed lots of images, and the AI doesn't know what cancer is, but you can show it enough patterns to say, here's images of people without cancer, and here's images of people with cancer. And very rapidly, the AI was identifying cancer in images better than medical professionals with decades of experience. And so when we think about like pulling these hard parts of jobs away and empowering them to do their core function, provide great customer experiences, I think it's a really great story of people and technology coming together.
I have to add one thing to you, like a game of ping pong here.
Yeah, we can leave Flava out of it. That's fine.
I'm not the smart one here. That's why I brought you two up. So.
Oh, goodness. Well, so the word comes to mind is balance, because here's a real example where AI and the human have to work together. Okay, so worked at Schindler Elevator Corporation. Imagine you are stranded in an elevator, okay? Now, can you imagine, or
hopefully that's not PTSD for folks.
Exactly. So what happens is when you're stuck in an elevator, you can press this button and you can get to a human being. Maybe other providers would actually give you an AI. Well, can you imagine I'm claustrophobic. So if I'm stuck, and I listen to many, many people calling and pressing that 911 button in the elevator and saying, I'm stuck, I gotta get out, I can't breathe. Well, what happens is you need a person on the other side to say with empathy, I hear you. I imagine how hard that is. I'm getting the mechanic, he's on his way, I'm here with you, right? Versus a robot saying, sorry about your luck, in essence, right? Like, no empathy. That doesn't work. Where the AI is helpful is telling the agent, here's how far the mechanic is. He's on his way. He's, like that updated real-time update is valuable, that the human can give that person who's in pain in that elevator stuck for however long. So it's a balance.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and I kind of want to step away from me asking questions. I want to open it up to anybody that has any questions up there for either Stacy or Tim. Don't be shy.
You're all baffled. It's a complicated world.
All right.
I'm thinking of like what the AI would be in the elevator, though. Like, in a very humorously inappropriate way. Like, hi, I'm Ellie, the AI elevator assistant. Sorry you're stuck today.
I'm sorry you're in pain. I'm sorry about your claustrophobia, but, I mean, it just wouldn't be good.
No.
It wouldn't be good, but, companies that are trying to really cut costs may implement that. And that's my point. There's a time and a place to use automation, and there's a time not. So.
At the end of the day, one of the things that I always stress on is technology isn't always going to fix it. People are still a big part of that equation in order to provide that great experience.
I have great fear as we keep hearing about the AI taking our voices and our humanness, right? Like, how are you going to know who's really calling you?
Yeah.
How do you know who's, I mean, I have a code word with my kids now around this. So I don't know where that's going.
All right. Well, thank you both. I really appreciate the time and be able to sit down with us and kind of walk through. And both Tim and Stacy will be around through the networking portions as well. So you'll have an opportunity to pick their brains if you want to pick their brains or just shoot the shit.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, everybody. All right.